They're coming at me. I understand that. I think it was one of the most dangerous moments of my life. Because when it falls on the crowd, they might stab you, they might beat you, things get really bad, I could die. It was possible that I could have died. Yes, what I'm telling you is clear without any exaggeration. I felt it. So, at the end, he says, don't throw it. I tell him it's a matter of safety without even thinking about it. Anyway, I was pouring the water, and before I could react, he attacked me with terrifying rage. It was unbelievable. That stuck with me, and I managed to close the door in time. And I saw him literally turning into a pulp against the wall as he was banging himself. He was crashing into the wall, trying to get through the door to catch me, and you don't even have time to process it. The only thing I managed to do was to close the door instinctively and lock it. I saw him turning into a mess. Every time. I mean, he was hitting the door with his head. He didn't even use his hands. He would just run and slam his head into the door. He just wanted to get through the door. Every time he took a step back, I saw him getting redder and redder until his whole body had turned red. It was terrifying.
Welcome to FtaklakisTalks. In today's episode, I have with me Giorgos Misailidis. Giorgos is a psychotherapist. He used to be a correctional officer at Korydallos prison, and he is also an educator and a uniformed officer. I'm very glad. It's an honor for me to be on the episode.
The honor is mine.
Mine. So I want you to say a few words about yourself for the people who might not know you, and then we'll start the episode.
So briefly, so we don't tire our dear friends, I studied at the American College, finished my education, then I trained in the cognitive analytic model of Stavros Karalampidis, who was and still is a very important person in my life. After that, I did my first master's degree in that field. Then I did my second master's degree at the University of Liverpool in the United Kingdom. I had already entered. I had already been appointed to the public sector. I moved forward. I got involved in teaching and I moved forward. Then we had a transfer. It came along our way, where I found myself in Korydallos, Kiosinis Ministry of Justice, specifically Korydallos in the year 2014, where I served until the year 2020. In January of 20, I left from there. Those were very intense years. It was a great honor for me to serve with my colleagues there. Why? Yes, it was a very difficult period, extremely difficult. But they were people who had integrity, they were people who had honor, and they stood by me in very tough situations. I remember them even today with great emotion, and I'm sure that quite a few are watching your show. And from where I am, I want to give them my respect and tell them that I appreciate them and that I still hold them in my heart. So, after passing through that position, I returned to my current post anyway, and I continued with teaching and so on. For some months now. Together with my colleague, Konstantinos Mouhalos, an excellent scientist with great experience. We are working together at the Institute of Mental Health and Psychotherapy, which is based in Klaipėda. It offers good teaching and is a very nice place where I believe services of exceptional quality and immediacy are provided to the patient with absolute respect. At the same time, I am also collaborating in the educational field. I am speaking literally. We have a partnership where we deal with issues of stress management for students, issues that may involve some conflicts they have with their parents, about teaching issues, and generally the full range of issues related to education. And I am especially proud of that as well.
I want you to tell me how you started getting involved with these issues.
Well, the truth is that it goes quite a long way back. I remember that ever since I was in high school, My friends and various classmates would approach me if they were feeling down. I was always very willing to listen. I was quite involved, trying to see what was going on, to understand, to perceive it. Well, the truth is, I failed to get into a psychology school through the Pan-Hellenic exams, which are really good in Greece, let's say that. So I worked a bit abroad, yeah, for 2 years, and in 2001, I decided to go to the American College of Greece, which was very difficult. Back then, I had to work really hard so we could manage the expenses. Yeah, my parents were alive at the time, thank God, and we managed to cover the expenses with great difficulty. I moved around, I went to the army, I interrupted my studies, and when I came back, I stopped again for a semester to work, then I continued my studies. I met Stavros Haralampidis. He helped me essentially and decisively to finish. I also completed Stavros's school, and later, having already been appointed, I didn't stop uh, and I switched. I also went to the University of Liverpool. So around 2013, a very difficult period for Greece, a transfer came. The employees at in Korydallos respected my position and my studies a lot. We continued. I continued to develop academically, and today, to keep it brief, I've gotten to where I am today, so as not to go on too long. So it was a journey that, of course, had its ups and downs. It took a lot of willpower on my part. And all this motivation, all this drive, I try to pass it on to the people I come into contact with. Because I believe that the psychotherapy and teaching, but since we'll talk more about psychotherapy, it's a form, it's not a profession. It's a vocation in which the therapist is called to improve, to help the client find a way to improve their life. In a particularly negative, a social condition that we have today, both in Greece and more generally in the Western world, in Western civilization, yes.
So, you know what I want? I want us to talk a bit about your work and then talk about what's happening with depression and everything we mentioned before. So, I want you to tell me in general what has shocked you the most from your patients, or when you were a correctional officer, the things you've seen.
Speaking about separating those things, I'm talking about the period when I worked as a correctional officer. What has really stayed with me, which has been described on your other shows, I won't mention the incidents of violence. And those are that human nature, when pressured, can become brutal. To a point that is incomprehensible for an average citizen. And when I say average citizen, I mean all the people who live a normal life. They wake up in the morning, go to their jobs, have their families and friends, and in the evening they return home and their day ends. Well, a person who has been involved in illegal activities, has been involved in violence, incidents, especially from a young age, can reach such a point of brutality where literally it becomes easier than drinking a glass of water to harm someone else. Especially in some cases I encountered back then where people had come from countries where they had actually fought in wars, not as refugees. And I say real refugees, actual refugees, but from wars, not like those who abuse the term, especially those who have war wounds. Or they were mercenaries, because I met mercenaries who had killed a lot of people, literally had murdered. That's how they had killed during the operations they took part in countries like during the civil war in Syria. I remember very well, another one had fought in the Sudan civil war. So, These people had reached such a level of brutality that I had the feeling they were basically just waiting for when they would leave our country. To get involved in such operations again, basically having the right to kill without consequences, yes.
It gives them life, it gives them a purpose.
Of course, I agree with what you're saying. It gives them life, it gives them meaning. And in fact, the most tragicomic part of it is that these people lived among us in our neighborhoods. That's right, they lived in regular houses. I remember some interactions where they'd say, when he's not good, so and so is good. Their neighborhoods and people around them could never really understand it. That the person they greeted every morning might have killed 25 or 30 people literally, and that number is not an exaggeration at all. Because, well, when someone is involved in such operations for years, it's certain that, well, they will kill some opponents, from another armed faction. It doesn't have to do with an opposing army, it has to do with a faction. Because there were groups of mercenaries, and of course these groups had different objectives. So, there were the Western groups, there were those coming from the Eastern Bloc, and of course there were clashes between them. So, yes, human nature can go that far, that's what has stayed with me. That it can reach a point of dehumanization which is unimaginable right now for the average citizen.
And everything else seems boring to them, absolutely boring.
Because the constant flow of substances in our body, like dopamine, pleasure, meaning that you achieve something, or adrenaline doesn't leave the body. You basically have an addiction. You're an adrenaline or dopamine junkie. Are they dopamine junkies too? That's exactly what they didn't have, and usually when they came back. Well, you would see a person who used to be in amazing physical shape ending up with a belly because of alcohol, falling into drugs, into substances. Why didn't they fit in? Here, it was over, things had changed, the way they thought had changed, and basically, they were just waiting. Well, until they could leave again? They'd perk up a bit. When they went to Haidari, they'd practice shooting at a range there. The way I remember them holding the gun, it was truly a real love affair.
Do you think these people were born the same way I was, you were, and anyone else was? Were they just programmed? Their brains were programmed like that, so after a while it was reversible, to return to normal, let's say.
That's a very insightful question. In what sense? Because here we could say, for example, that some people genetically, since humans are electrochemical tools, have a certain tendency. What do I mean? Genetically? Definitely, our experiences play a decisive role in what we become. That's clear, that's generally accepted. But what happens when we have a genetic tendency, meaning we have a greater sensitivity or tolerance to adrenaline? Do we have a greater, let's say, inclination to the signals our brain gives us about intensity? Then we will be unconsciously drawn to a profession, let's say in quotes, that will provide us with those things, which essentially they activate us to a greater degree than something we consider boring. Otherwise, we would all be more or less the same because of the education system. So experiences do play a key role, but genetic factors can also push us in a certain direction. So a person, to finish the answer, a person who has lower pain tolerance and has learned to be in an environment that may be very competitive. This combination could produce a boxer, it could produce someone who practices a combat sport. Because he doesn't feel pain or feels less pain, right? And he's also competitive. So isn't it natural for someone like that to be drawn to a combat sport? I mean, everything plays a role. We have by no means fully understood human nature. We know quite a few things. Many behaviors are mapped out, but of course not everything.
So, I want us to talk a little. As a correctional officer, I think they will be very interested that you met so many offenders over there. What have you seen? Who have you dealt with? Not who, but in general, with those you've talked to. Can some of them be saved? Huh? Isn't that your purpose, to reform them?
Yes? What's going on? Can I answer you a bit with statistics? The statistics of the Greek state at a rate of 85. Do we have re-entry into the correctional system very soon? This happens because the correctional system can't reform someone whose way of life is illegality. You can't. I mean, it's a person who started from a young age, doesn't work systematically, has addictions, has family reasons, because, for example, in various countries, there are families that are involved in delinquent activities. The person involved can't break this. It's considered dishonorable, so he's obligated. No matter how many opportunities the correctional system in Greece gives, no matter how much it tries, this can't be reversed. This vicious cycle can't be stopped.
So, some people can't be saved?
Well, definitely some people can't be saved. Let me be clear about that, so it doesn't seem like I'm avoiding the question. Some people definitely can't be saved. That's the Greek correctional system. Well, in general, does it offer opportunities? Does it have a school inside? Does it have work programs that reduce the sentence? In general, I would say it's quite friendly towards the Greek inmate. But beyond that, in Athena and Chirikini, I know kids who, because they were kids, got involved in serious criminal acts that someone would think their lives were over. In the end, there would be no return, and yet I saw them on the street by chance, driving a van, working, and they greeted me. So, someone else opened a shop, they found their way. I know tough criminals, people who wouldn't take anything from anyone, and they had children. They have a girlfriend, a relationship, a woman, something like that. They've opened a cafe, they're calm, they work out. Has their path changed?
But these are exceptions, right?
Are they mostly exceptions? Yes, because delinquency is a way of life. There are some things that have adrenaline. They are people who have a tendency for adrenaline. They have a tendency. In a life that's more about action, they move differently. They can't just go to a regular job easily. I mean, how can you teach someone who has learned, let's say, to get an amount that could be a lot? It's a mystery. How will this person learn and be convinced that a balanced life is about getting up at 6 in the morning, taking all the pressure from the boss, keeping your head down, paying for everything, where the cost of living is unbearable and unfair for the citizen, and then at night go home, hate yourself, and say thank you? I think it's very hard for people to be proud. I remember that I always spoke to them formally. They would tell me, "Sir, we're not gentlemen. You made us gentlemen," but we always used the formal address. I had avoided it a lot. Did anyone attack you? Never, never, only once. They had warned me about it. We had an order back then to put water in the medicine. We gave medicine every noon to the inmates. They took some medicine. Many were psychiatric cases. So what did we do? We put the medicine in the cup and water inside. That was it. Why? What did they do? Because they would take it and inject it together with heroin and die. We had deaths during that period then. So I remember that one noon an inmate told me, who was already in for murder. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 murders. Anyway, he was serving a huge sentence. He tells me not to pour it in, but I say it's a security issue and act without thinking. Anyway, I was pouring the water, and before I could react, he attacked me with terrifying rage. It was unbelievable. That stuck with me, and I managed to close the door in time. And I saw him literally turning into a pulp on the wall as he was banging against it. He was trying to get through the door to catch me. He literally turned into pulp, just like in the movies. He became pulp, like a tomato. Can you? What you did was incredible, and it really stuck with me. How did you feel about it? Her? Me? You don't have time to process it. The only thing I managed to do was to close the door instinctively, to lock it. And I was watching him because, well, I could see him changing. You sleep on it. Whenever he hit the door with his head, without using his hands, he would immediately charge at it, just wanting to get past it. I saw him every time he took a step back. I saw him getting redder and redder until his whole body was covered. It wasn't great. Come on, imagine me, man. So this became known. It was found out. They called him to the infirmary and kicked him out of Korydallos. I never saw him again. So he really tried to kill me? He had a knife but didn't stab you? He would have killed me. There were 100 guys, that's all I can say. Did that make you stop? No, I didn't stop. Orders were orders. Well, as much as that might sound a bit contradictory, because someone might say, yes, but would that have happened? Well, orders are orders. Well, you're called to do a job. In general, the employees at Korydallos, we followed orders that put us in conflict, because it's logical when a population is enclosed, locked in, and you're pressuring them to stay locked up, that they'll take it out on you. So, a rule I learned there, and that has stayed with me from an inmate, I don't remember his name at all, was this. In my first year, he told me that if someone says they're going to kill you or gets angry with you, even makes a move, don't wait for them, he told me. Not even for a moment. Countless times they told me they were going to kill me, that they were going to beat me up, that they would do things to me, beat me, they cursed, they had all sorts of issues, like cancelled visitations, their wives leaving them and hanging up on them. They had a ton of problems. I remember one incident among all these. It was Easter. It was Easter of 2017. So it was a festive atmosphere. And so a prisoner was following me. He wouldn't let me close up and so on. I told him not to follow me, to stop that. He kept insisting anyway and attacked me for real. He actually tried to attack me. He took a step back. I saw him. It was one of those incidents where I realized that he was going to hit me. He was a boxer. He was very strong. I would have had a problem. So I remember I hesitated for a moment. I thought, they asked me what punishment should I give him, Nikantu. He tells me just a half report. We wrote him up and he would get a meetup. It was a big deal for the inmate to get a report because it was very likely that it would get his parole revoked. When he tried for parole after 4, 5, or 6 years, they'd say, you threatened an officer again, so you're staying in. What does that mean? For the inmate, that was like a knife to the heart, right? Because he was waiting to be released. And you had the authority, let's say the power to do that to him, so I couldn't take that responsibility to do it. And indeed, let's say, after an hour he came and found me, asked to open it, called me, I went up to his door. My shift wasn't over yet, and he apologized to me 1,000 times. I told him there's nothing between us, I told him it's over. And basically it was like it never happened. This has happened many times. I respected them a lot. I didn't treat them as just faces. I had no problem at all. I wish I could say a few more things right now. I also remembered an incredible incident during the uprising, but I don't want to go into details about what happened. I hadn't thought about this for years, and honestly, now that I think about it, I can't say I'm not moved. Maybe this is the culmination.
The uprising, you?
I wouldn't want to go into details because I just wouldn't want to.
Was there panic? I wouldn't want to say.
I wouldn't want to go into details. I'll tell you this. I don't want a year or anything else. Let's just say that, okay? So he has started a huge, let's say, commotion, a ruckus, a flood of people is coming at me. You know the mob? The mob is a terrifying aspect of our social behavior where we basically become like piranhas. So two people who are harmless can join together in a mob to go out and destroy everything in the stadium. Basically, it's a mob. People who, one is a family man, the other is a taxi driver, etc., come together and become like an army. The same thing then was happening at that moment. And in the middle of all this, they come at me. I realized that I think it was one of the most dangerous moments of my life, because when the crowd comes at you,
They can
stab you, they can beat you up really badly.
You could die.
It was possible to die. What I'm telling you is clear, without any exaggeration. I felt it, but it's not the end, and through all of this, guys, I will never forget it. A high-profile inmate comes over. a very prominent one who actually particularly disliked the correctional staff. But I, as I told you, always addressed them formally. They knew who spoke formally and who didn't, who showed respect, who punished, who acted like a judge, etc. And he stood in front of me along with a friend of his. The prisoners formed a human shield and took the blows that were meant for me. And that really stayed with me, guys, I'm telling you. And I just remembered it now, after a long time, as I'm telling you, as an example that the prisoners have a code of respect. They have a code of honor. And many times they are also the scapegoats. Because they ended up inside, because they refused to talk about things they knew. They covered for some people and ended up inside. And this is a terrible example that someone who disliked the correctional service put his body in front and took a barrage of blows. I told him I would have taken them myself. Basically, he protected me, and I remember the force pushing me aside and making me step back. To be in front of me and to have become a punching bag, a prominent detained prisoner. I never saw it again since then.
You know what? I haven't understood. Are you there? Don't you have anything on you to protect yourself?
Did we have our wits about us? Yes, we had our wits about us. We had Akli.
Someone to protect you? What can I say? You're just there.
The correctional service in general is an understaffed service. That was what would save you from many situations, to protect you. If the question is about protective gear, etc., no, if that's what the question is about. How you would actually protect yourself was with respect for the dignity of those people and with the perceptiveness to avoid something you knew was coming. Yes. The smartest people I've met in my life, apart from the scientific community, were in the correctional system. I've never seen this anywhere else in the Greek public sector. Of course, I haven't worked with officers of the Hellenic police. I emphasize this because, from what I've seen in some incidents, they too are particularly intelligent. Correctional officers are a category of public servants on their own. They shouldn't be labeled simply as public employees. It's something different. They're underpaid and understaffed. I believe there should be a special pay scale for them. Should it be double what it is now and definitely allow retirement at 55? Absolutely, because a person can't perform beyond 55, it's not possible, and they won't be respected, and they can't always be on alert. Why? What happens? Does the correctional officer work mornings, afternoons, or nights? Can something occur? He's called, stays on alert, and takes action when needed. He is permanent, like someone else who is permanent. Essentially, he is a servant who is always available in a public service. Just like doctors, just like nurses, these are different categories. It shouldn't be characterized as just public service. It's literally a war zone inside our city.
When someone has a family and kids, isn't their biggest fear that their loved ones might be threatened? Who would they turn to then? The administration?
Can I tell you something about that? The inmates, don't they threaten? Isn't that a way of threatening you? No one ever told me, I'll find you outside or I'll do something. I only remember once when someone played a prank on me and I told him, I don't like your joke. It was an inmate who was very aggressive and so on. He really liked to hit people and he played a prank on me. Anyway, while I was driving my car, he sent some bodyguards from his group outside who were twice my size and they basically blocked me on Petrorally Street. Of course I realized it because we had something like that before. I was expecting it. The next day he tells me, did you like the joke I played on you? I told him I didn't like it at all. He says, you didn't like the prank? I said, no, not at all. He said, okay. I remember very well that they were huge, like beasts, and that they did a wheelie because they had come with a BMW 1200 and did a wheelie. Where they turned onto Petrorally, over the bridge, doing a wheelie. At over 100 kilometers per hour, 2 people riding double, and that scene stuck with me, seeing them disappear into the horizon. So then, no, the inmates don't threaten you as long as you keep your integrity, right? Because, well, a correctional officer who decides to get involved, and I think this applies to all public services, who decides to get involved in situations that are illegal and unethical in their work, I think from that point on, he crosses a red line for which he is responsible for whatever happens to him. That's why there are so many incidents.
What if, for example, you had the right to be a bit more flexible? For example, when his visitor came, when his wife came, his children, to let them stay longer, let's say, to let them stay longer so that they would appreciate it. If someone sees his children more, he appreciates you for that favor. Or does going for a cigarette together create a bond? Did that happen? Is that a concept among us?
Does that exist? Of course, and we were very cooperative when it came to visitation, and of course the state would send us cigarettes, which were meant to be destroyed, and we would give them out. Of course, because, many people on the outside might have the impression that prisons are like hotels and things like that. I mean, I hear things like that and I can't believe it. I mean, I see the ignorance, how they grab onto an idea and shape it. But the reality is that, as far as I can remember, in my mind, at least 90% of the inmates are poor, and that's understandable. They're constantly in prison, they haven't gotten out, so cigarettes, tobacco, the basics of prison life, we were the ones providing them for the most part. Well, the food is provided by the service. Okay, it's not the Hilton, but, well, that was the ironic part of the whole thing. I remember that during that time the food was so good that many of us would eat inside, right? So yes, there was flexibility, and yes, there was flexibility to the extent possible. Because let's not forget that we're talking about people who are imprisoned, detainees. Yes, they were very tolerant and very cooperative in many things, and it was difficult for an incident to happen with someone else, really. Usually they had problems among themselves, okay? That's another story, but it was difficult. We knew that if something happened, we knew that there was something, some issue, we knew that.
Giorgos, I want us to talk for a bit now. How does someone go down the path of delinquency? Let's put it that way. How does someone become delinquent?
That's a question that is very difficult. I mean, there have been like tons of books written about this to answer that question. In the limited time we have, I'll answer you with a combination of my own experiences and the literature and the studies I'm familiar with. Let's note here for the listeners that I work with delinquent youth and more generally with young people who show some signs that, let's say, they can't conform. Let's say to our social norms. It's a bit, let's put it that way. Their behavior and temperament are quite intense. So, do I know how to answer you? I believe I have a satisfactory understanding of delinquency. So, two different paths. The first path is that you are born into such a system, meaning a relative, a close relative, an uncle, a parent, family. That's how they work. In quotes, they live in such a situation, meaning they belong to a system that generates illegal income. Do we want this to be classified as drug trafficking? Do we want this to be classified as thefts? This concerns various social groups, just so we don't name them, but I think it's understandable. So in this case, you're born into it, you follow this path, essentially there is no other choice, it's a matter of honor and survival. So you can't betray your own people, right? In some countries, there are consequences if you don't follow, if you betray, if, let's say, you change your loyalty. The same applies in criminal organizations. They are all relatives so that everyone knows each other, so that no information can leak, so that an effective investigation cannot be carried out, and of course, so that the judicial investigation, the legal investigation, cannot proceed any further. Second case. When we are in adolescence and developing, some children, some teenagers develop a condition called callous disorder. It is essentially a disorder where the child is particularly callous, harsh, the child. What do I mean? He is harsh, disobedient to norms, for example, at school, tends to join a group which is not particularly his family, maybe some club, some other caste, something in any case outside his family. Well, I can't say gang because we don't have gangs in Greece, as far as I know. I mean, sometimes I've heard that there are no gangs here, not gangs of kids in the American sense, because an American gang is a different thing. Basically, some gangs are so well organized that they're like paramilitary groups. So he doesn't follow social norms. To keep it short, he leaves his family and considers the group he belongs to as his real family. There are acts like destruction of public property, mainly violence, incidents during games. There's animal torture, animal killing. Yes, they kill animals. It's very common. This, in the end, is behavior that shows a tendency towards antisocial actions. Antisocial behavior is not what is often implied. And they thought that just because someone is alone, he is antisocial. No, a person is not antisocial just because he is alone. An antisocial person is someone who does not form emotional bonds with others in order to achieve his goals. That is what makes someone antisocial. So therefore, he does not take social norms, laws, moral rules, or boundaries into account, and he acts in his own way. So, what we have all just described now is the precursor to this condition. In a very large percentage, according to research, which ranges between 75 and 85, the children who will develop this disorder I described will, as adults, move on to delinquent behavior. Usually throughout their entire lives, not temporarily, throughout their entire lives. So these people are the second path, which is essentially due to a psychiatric disorder, because it is a psychiatric disorder. They will not live their lives productively and legally. One last thing, because many people wonder, well, this person who broke in and stole from my neighbor or me, don't they have a conscience? No. Do they not have any conscience at all? Because a typical characteristic of this mental illness, this antisocial disorder and psychopathy, is that they have shallow emotions, meaning they don't feel like we do. We might feel remorse for something, like if we offended someone or hurt them, and in any case, we operate according to social norms. These people don't have that. These people. That's why they are capable of actions that we cannot do. What about remorse? Do they have any? Sometimes, well, I would hear them in prison crying, but only at night, of course, never in front of others, and very tough inmates crying. And sometimes when I would lock them up, they would tell me it was all in vain, but it wasn't, not even 1 in 100. Don't they have regrets? No, they're determined, and they don't think in terms of regret, they think differently. A delinquent mainly thinks opportunistically. What can I get out of it? What can I do? It's not like the others.
That's what's normal for them. I mean, not just what's normal for me, like going to work. For them, what's normal is to say, I'm going to steal. Or is it something they want, like pride? Is it their way? Is it like the simple thing for them? Or please?
Delinquency is a way of life for these people. It's a way of survival and a way of functioning within a social system. Many times, crimes that are more violent or of a larger scale, like very large embezzlements or robberies, or the murder of someone who has high status in the criminal world, bring prestige to the one who commits them. Of course, though, this also has other consequences. It's not that simple.
Alright, because for now I'm interested a bit in the psychology of those who don't commit crimes for material reasons, like robbing a bank or doing something like that. For those who commit rapes, who kill, what prevails there? In their mental state? I mean, what is the common characteristic that I can mention? Those who rape children, women, and mainly for the rapists? Subtitles.
Rapists are a category of their own, and they are completely unwanted. In prison, newcomers are taken straight to isolation because they can't take even a single step inside the prison. They will be attacked. Also, there is a special prison for them in Tripoli. Their mentality? Their mentality is unique. It can't be described with, how can I explain it? It can't be described as this, this, and this. It's about disorders, distortions, and perversions where they accumulate. So this person who will commit this shameful act, let's say this disgraceful act, may have had it for many years. He tries to resist and eventually believes that at some point he is in an advantageous position, that he can hide, and he does it. So it's a process that exists within them. It's an inclination, just like we have an inclination, for example, to find a good girl, to have a nice relationship. That's their inclination. It's a mental disorder. It's a form of mental disorder. It's a form perversion. This is incurable. It never really went away. We may be able to control it, but it's always there.
How does it happen? I don't believe anyone is born a rapist. I think someone becomes one. How does that occur?
Having read there are some stories, some incidents of people who were killing prostitutes. A common denominator was that their mothers were also of the same kind. Other cases were that they had been sexually abused at a young age. So being sexually abused at a young age definitely plays a role, even a very big one. Should I say just a role? No, it plays a very big role though, but it does not excuse them. I mean, I also know people who have told me that bad incidents happened to them in the past. They lead a completely decent life, but they carry the trauma inside them and they fight it. They didn't go on to become child rapists. They didn't become rapists of women. They're not abusers of women. They don't hit them. They don't insult them. That's it. So it doesn't absolve us people from a traumatic event. Otherwise, a very large part of the population would be murderers, blackmailers, abusers, and so on.
Giorgos, can I ask you why? First, I want us to talk about the men we mentioned earlier, who might be pleasuring themselves, finding easy pleasure. I want you to tell me why you think OnlyFans is so popular.
OnlyFans is a global phenomenon of enormous social significance, where beyond apart from the funny side of it, someone might say, but OnlyFans is so childish, but OnlyFans is actually very important. As an idea, as a concept, because the platform gives the user the opportunity to satisfy their voyeuristic instincts, because apart from the women who are known on OnlyFans, who have moved from the porn industry or were, in any case, officially in the sex industry. There are countless women who are literally girls next door producing content for OnlyFans. And this is accessible by other everyday people, and this creates a strong sense of accessibility and, let's say, an illusion that there is an approach. OnlyFans is a brilliant concept.
Why do you think men sit and do this? Instead of going out to meet women, to approach them, they just sit and watch?
Because men watch? You mean porn, right? Thank you. Porn is a factor that puts a lot of pressure on men.
And of course, these things,
which I want to repeat, are not just my personal opinion. I just agree with it. It is the result of years of scientific research. So, is porn readily available? Well, for anyone? I mean, if we look at it biologically, it produces instant dopamine, instant satisfaction. So, and of course, it doesn't require any effort at all. From then on, unfortunately. A man, are we going to talk about men? Only a man who is addicted to porn. And believe me, it's way too many. Many in the world, that's why everything works this way. I mean, the porn industry has grown huge and we constantly see new forms. VR now, for example, we talked about OnlyFans. So we can clearly see that the user base is increasing, especially in the Western world. It has been flooded, so this has especially a burdensome effect on men for reasons that we can all understand. That is, a man who had urges and satisfies them in this way, of course, doesn't have urges afterward. To go out and become the so-called hunter that we had in previous decades, to search, to act, to work towards a goal. Yes.
Afterward, you lose your goals, you lose a lot, you have no purpose.
Personally, yes, what you're saying is correct. Yes, in every way. Because, I mean, it would be a shame for a complete person to be involved with this thing and not essentially be looking to find a partner, to share some good times together. I mean, this isolation is very pathological, and unfortunately, it's a characteristic of our society now, of the entire Western civilization.
They stay alone.
A lot.
Lonely.
Let me explain something else for our listener. It's not just psychological, is it? Let's say that a person says, let's say a man says, for example, for instance, I did what I did, I was satisfied, now where should I go and all that? Testosterone, consuming testosterone. In this way, it essentially reduces all our other functions as well, which are related to movement, related to energy, related to mood. So it's very negative. Porn addiction for a man is one of the most burdensome factors.
It's a weapon. It's basically meant to bring us down.
If we looked at it from a conspiratorial perspective, we could say that it's a way to bring us down. But beyond that, we have to realize that in capitalism, everything is available. And you are responsible for what you do. You have absolute freedom and countless choices, but you also have to be responsible. The choices you make should not be harmful to yourself.
That's why you need to start controlling what you do.
It's difficult. It's hard to control. Listen, I'll tell you this. All that sounds nice. We often hear things like control yourself, set boundaries. But how are you supposed to set boundaries when you're bombarded with information and offers, when everything is easy, while traditional things are hard? Think about it now. Let's say, for example, a man who is 35 has already worked 13 or 14 years after finishing school, let's say at 22. Okay, let's not consider the cases where someone says, I live at home until I'm 35. So this man is tired. Let's say he's worked for 10 years. He's exhausted. He's taken a barrage of hits to his ego. He has broken up in various unpleasant ways. He feels that some women have made fun of him. Others have dishonored him. So in any case, his endurance has decreased. And on top of that comes the oversupply. OnlyFans instant porn free. Alright, so this man, what tolerance can he have and what limits can he set for himself? I mean, will he say that after everything I've been through, I still have some left? They are very few. We're talking about men. Yes, that's right. Women. What? Does it apply? Women? I think that, of course. They have become much more independent and much stronger. And this is social progress. As long as women were beneath men due to social and economic reasons. Some people call this patriarchy, but I am against this term because it is abused by so-called feminists, whom I consider to be an extremist group. Let me put it simply, because what they say is extreme. So basically, we've gone to the other extreme and they hate men. But the reality is that one is made for the other. So, to return to the question of what applies to women, women have become much more independent, much more socially capable, they have been educated, and now they hold positions of power in society, both political and executive. So these women have something that is very clear and very logical. Why should these women waste themselves on someone, right? And I'm speaking based on what they've told me. This is a completely personal opinion, but it's also my own opinion. So, for what reason then? A woman who is productive, who is respectable, who is beautiful, right? Because many of them work out. Many of them take care of themselves, right? We have cosmetic procedures now, which 10 years ago were only in the realm of Hollywood. So, for what reason should such a woman, and there are many of them now, accept being with a man who is dysfunctional? The question is clear. It's also a matter of instinct that women want someone who can support them so they can share good times together after all. Why might some women say that they don't want someone to support them? They want to share something beautiful with someone. That's great to share something beautiful, but with whom? When men are like this? From our side, we've become what we're describing at this level, a very large portion of the population. And women, on the other hand, have changed, have evolved, and they define social events to a great extent. We have amazing women entrepreneurs. An example, imagine that the richest woman right now, the richest ship owner in Greece,
is a woman.
So today I read something amazing. Of course, this happened a few months ago. The lady with the cosmetics. Mrs. Katsafadou with the cosmetics. Mrs. Katsafadou in Klinistiki. An amazing entrepreneur, really. Donations from scratch. An incredible person. How many other women in the medical field, in the political field? So many women, these women, and all those who look up to them as role models, who are evolving and studying. Why should they bring trouble upon themselves? So that's the whole point, that it's very easy to blame women for this and that. But we also have to bring ourselves to a point where we are at least functional and, let me say, desirable. Good company. Yes, that's how we'll get there.
All right, I want us to move on to depression now. I think it's time. Giorgos, I want you to tell me why, okay? Now, a lot of people have depression. This phenomenon has increased, let's put it that way. Do you think that those who have depression, who believe they have depression, isn't it because of their actions? I mean, from what they do every day? From their routine? So, by themselves, they get into this, they don't have anything to chase, they do those easy things we talked about, so they get a quick dopamine hit, then they have nothing to do, they got what they wanted, and they fall into depression.
I think what you said really describes a big part of the truth of this situation. Referring to the literature, I will say that depression is considered the scourge of this century, and not without reason. Countless times, our listeners have heard about it and know very well what depression is, a mental illness, and in fact an extremely serious one, because it has, well, destructive consequences. Can it even lead to suicide? Of course, before we get to suicide, other things have happened first. But in any case, I mentioned this directly, that depression can even cause this terrible event then, beyond all the other self-destructive behaviors.
But may I ask something? I believe that depression also has to do with your belief. I mean, when it comes to depression, if you believe you have depression, if you don't believe you have it, how can you get it, suffer from it?
Really? Is that what you're saying? Really? So,
How is it an illness?
I'll explain that then. Let's explain something for our dear listeners. So, what we're discussing here, specifically regarding depression, is it scientifically proven that a person who has depression experiences changes in their body? So, what is immediately visible from the outside is the lack of energy, sluggishness, slower movements, lack of interest in life, withdrawal from social settings, abandonment of interests, and so on. However, inside our body, biological changes also occur, for example, chemicals, which essentially control our brain, our happiness, our thoughts. These chemicals, I'm saying this very briefly so as not to tire you, are reduced, and antidepressants, the strong antidepressants, essentially try and manage to make the brain produce these substances again. From that point on, there is generally a decline in the body. The immune system also weakens, which is why many times these people are sick, and overall there is a decline, an ideological and behavioral decline. Well, what is also very important to understand is that with depression, we are now entering a downward spiral. That is, once we enter this process, both physically and mentally, the situation constantly gets worse. They decrease because having less and less energy and fewer chemicals inside us to react and escape, we are now more and more at the mercy of the situation. Until we reach a point of major depression, not everyone gets there, where medication needs to be administered. In order to create a space, essentially a space within us, so that we can somehow maneuver and start climbing back up again.
Also, many people say they have depression when they're just a little sad about something that happened during their day. It's very easy.
How? I want you to explain that to me.
Depression.
Depression, a depressive episode can last from 4 to 6 weeks. It's depressive.
Episode.
This? So? Is it mild and major then? Mild depression is now so common that I don't even know if it matters to mention it in our society. Major depression is a more severe condition.
Where you might even go to the psychiatric hospital, let's say, like a GS psychiatric hospital.
You'll go to the psychiatric hospital if you've been in this state for months, where the episode then turns into major depression. Depression? Yes, a lot. This lasts for months. And precisely because these illnesses, these mental illnesses, are especially insidious, that's something I notice various professionals in the field doing. They don't mention how insidious these illnesses are. So what happens then? And I'm saying this as simply as I can, just getting into it. So, as we enter the downward spiral of these illnesses, of a psychological nature, our body becomes less and less able to react. So we become weaker and weaker. So we accept this weakness as something normal. We have now entered a vicious cycle. So we keep thinking the same things. There are no solutions. We are too weak to apply the solutions, even if we know them. And this is something that has really stayed with me. These people don't listen to advice. They don't listen to you. Why can't they listen to you? They don't listen. They don't want to. Or they're just not in the right phase to listen. They're not in a position to listen. They're not at the stage to hear it. They're not at the stage for us to say it. They don't listen. It's an incredible trait, you know. Many people say, well, doesn't he understand how things are? Doesn't he see what's happening? It just doesn't work. They don't listen to you. So that's where the intervention of a specialist is needed if the case is very serious. Medication and psychotherapy.
Do you think it has to do with character? Of course, how someone sees things like the sky?
Of course it has to do with character. That's a very basic element. There are people who are introverted and people who are extroverted. The introverted person is statistically more likely to become depressed, while the extroverted, how? Because they move in a larger social environment and have more stimuli and healthier stimuli, they're less likely to become depressed, although that doesn't mean the social environment is always a major determining factor. And because they have more stimuli and healthier stimuli, they're less likely to become depressed. Of course, this doesn't mean that they are invulnerable. None of us are invulnerable anymore. And what I would like to focus on here is that we hear the term depression very often. Unfortunately, Western civilization now produces depression. It's a product, it's a condition that is universal.
Explain to us a bit more. When did this whole spiral of Western civilization begin, and how can we then try to deal with this thing?
Does this have to do with existential reasons? What do I mean by existential? If we turn the clock back 50 years ago, I won't say 150 years ago, everyone says that things used to be better. Well, I don't agree with that. From what perspective? I don't agree anymore. Except for one asterisk, everything was worse. We had worse medicine, worse technology, worse health, worse options. But interpersonal relationships were more direct. Yes, why do I mention this? Well, because today's societies, as we move toward the age of abundance, there's a social term for this, which is called scarcity society, meaning a society of abundance. The more you have things ready, society has things ready and provides them to us. What do we want? To get turned on OnlyFans? What do we want? I want to eat. What do we want? I want a woman to come.
Have I seen such an experiment? It was research, I don't know, where they put a monkey and gave it everything ready and it died.
Yes, because they degenerate towards the drones. Now, did you say something?
Maybe a mouse? I can't remember, but it was all set up and then died. Just a note.
Just a side note, you brought up a topic now which, well, yes, we didn't mention it humorously, but it's of great importance and we'll keep it in mind. I'll come back to it. So it's very important then. Do we have everything ready? So when everything is ready, and these are basically the essentials of our lives, solved, resolved, then we have no direction. We no longer have anything to fight for. Everything is resolved. In the past, people 50 years ago, our parents, what did they do? I'll raise children, I'll start a family, I'll work hard for them, I'll build a house, I'll create something. Now, how many of us are, let's say, how many of us from the younger generation, how many say, I'm going to start a family, I'm going to do this? I hear things like, I want to become an influencer, I want to make money, I want to have fun, I want to travel the world. That's respectable. I don't want to criticize them, but what's happening? These things, for the most part, aren't really realistic directions. Because how many of us can actually live the high life, to put it simply? And on the other hand, they deprive the individual of the sense of direction, of effort, and when we take away direction and effort, we immediately remove a whole lot of other pillars as well. Character, discipline, routine, determination, endurance, resilience, countless others, which are very fundamental and especially very fundamental for men. That is, men are mainly affected by this and have degenerated while women have become stronger. Yes, these things have now become stark opposites. So I'm coming back to the very, very good example you mentioned about the amoeba. So did we talk about degeneration? Of course, there is degeneration of the brain when it doesn't function, because what is the brain? An electrochemical tool. It generates current, we learn something new pathways are created in the cortex of the brain. If we don't provide anything new, everything is easy, everything is comfortable, and even the pathways that have already been created degenerate as a result. What can we say? This person is sluggish, this person is indifferent, this person is a hypochondriac.
But we can't even think anymore. I mean, we use ChatGPT to think for us. Nothing. Everything is ready. Now?
That's another issue. We can't avoid progress. We definitely can't. The people in the 21st century have all these comforts. I'm not saying we should go live in a cave and avoid them. That's the situation. At least we can't go back to the mental state we were in 50 years ago. Back then, to write a paper at university, we would go to the public library and spend time there. Now everything is ready for us. We can't reverse that, and we shouldn't reverse it. That would mean going backward, otherwise there wouldn't be technology. But beyond that, what we can do and what we must do, and I say must, I mean it from the bottom of my heart, is that we should exercise, we should evolve, we should educate ourselves, we should learn new things, and we should have goals. If we remove the basic pillars of our existence, then we can't have a life that has meaning. And of course, what is the result? I'm not okay with myself. But how can a person be okay if they don't have all these pillars? This is a huge framework. The Western world has essentially castrated people, and especially men. So I won't get into nutritional or medical issues. So also because of the low testosterone that was mentioned in another show with the excellent doctor. Yeah, the doctor, that's right, exactly. Of course, I don't follow him, but I've seen that Anadiastimata talks and shouts about this issue, and it's a huge truth where we also have this biological factor limiting us, that the testosterone levels that men have nowadays are shockingly lower than just one generation ago, and medically. So what does the system itself do? Does it aim for that? Does it aim for that? Doesn't it? It tells you, a person who has low testosterone, of course he's going to be depressed. He doesn't have the appetite for anything, isn't that right? Oh, what can I say about that? Okay, man, oh, this happened. Oh, they hurt me. Oh, they wronged me. How can he respond or live his life? How will he create here? He can't even go to the kiosk right now. That is, we also have biological limitations in what this gentleman is saying. It's absolutely correct. A huge truth, and of course not admitted by the community.
Why do they push psychiatric drugs when they haven't checked for this? He asks. And everyone takes psychiatric drugs, has low testosterone, and is finished.
This is an issue, which is, I'll speak personally.
Because you should care about this too, but...
Of course I care personally, It's one of the first things I check. For the men who do me the honor of visiting me, it's to see their physical condition. But the honorable doctor is right in what he mentioned.
So, him too? I said it?
What this man has said and what other people support. It's just that in Greece, he's the main representative of it. It's that a man with testosterone backs it up. Of course, it will be trapped in a depressive body since a person is an electrochemical tool and doesn't receive the signals it should. Let's put it simply. We can't really explain the whole mechanism now on this show, but think of it as a weak signal. So there's no appetite, no motivation, no mood, no drive. Isn't that right? What could be more important for a man than these things? The previous generation were like giants. We used to see them, for example, the other day I watched a video, and honestly, I was shocked and I didn't care. Let this be said publicly. I saw a fashion show with men's clothes by Valentino from '95, and they were all guys. Marcus, the model, Scheckenberg, I don't know if you know him, maybe the listeners know him, Marcus, and how many other models? I can't remember them all of them, very masculine, long hair, muscles. I see, for example, Valentino this year to compare next to it, and I see some stick-like androgynous people walking, and I say, of course, that's an issue. I had talked about men and testosterone, and of course it produces depressive behaviors, and of course the man becomes passive, because the male hormone, that's a male hormone. Since that's missing, well, it has a lot of negative side effects, not positive ones. It's not something that if it's missing, it's no big deal. Huge negative side effects. So coming back to this topic, yes, of course, it's very, very important because a person whose testosterone I mentioned is trapped in a depressive biochemical framework anyway. And it's not just about urges and those things, it also has to do with mood. There's no motivation, no drive, no plan. A person with low testosterone lacks energy, drive, and often feels like they have nothing to do.
There is simply the generation of major depression. That's my opinion, I'm sure. Should we ask if you believe in the generation of depression? Do you believe in the generation of major depression?
There is a genetic predisposition where some people are definitely more prone in that direction. But that isn't a sure guide. That doesn't mean with absolute certainty that this person will become, simply put, depressed. Yes, there are people who have a greater biological sensitivity to being more negative about certain things, to not accepting new stimuli and so on. But that doesn't mean that these people will necessarily be depressed in the pathological sense. There are people who lead very creative lives. There is always the suspicion underneath, like a shadow, that if something happens, we will react more negatively. They won't get into that situation, but it doesn't mean they will either. It just exists.
And do insecurities lead to depression?
Very good question. Of course, they lead to depression, certainly. And if we define them, what can we say about insecurities? How would we define them?
Your body? What happens? I mean, there are women who have a very big issue with how they see their bodies, the things we see nowadays.
Right now, you're touching on a very important root. That's very accurate. Clearly, insecurities, of course. Meanwhile, something even worse about our society is that it constantly pushes us to compare ourselves. And the worst part is that it pushes us to compare ourselves with something that's fake. What do I mean? Let me explain. We can't all be supermodels. We can't all be Casanovas. We can't all be entrepreneurs. We can't all be super duper successful. And of course, there's also the wrong, let's say, perception that if I am this, and this, then I'm talking about others. I will attract something to me that will adore me, will love me, I don't know. Many people have this illusion because it is an illusion, I suppose. Something similar applies to women, where women are confronted with very harsh beauty standards. I remember at some point in the 1930s there was a model in the 1940s who was very thin, skinny. I think I'll refer to my own era, where in the 1990s and early 2000s we had the top models. We had Naomi Campbell back then, we had Sylvia, Claudia Schiffer, we had Cindy Crawford, and there were extreme diets going on. So many women came to the gym back then when I had just started too, and they were working out really hard, trying their best. It was the first time I saw that just like we had Schwarzenegger and Stallone back then, they also had their own top models. But back then we used to laugh it off and we would joke about the others, calling them Sfazerostallone. I mean, we used to laugh about it, that we would become more buff like that. But now it has become a social norm that we are constantly bombarded by super duper people who spend, let's say, huge amounts on their appearance, which they obviously earn from their work. Recently, people have been talking about Brad Pitt's face, which is admittedly in amazing condition, but there are rumors that it has cost $1 million. Well, we can't become like Brad Pitt, just like we can't become Brad Pitt ourselves. Women can't become like Angelina Jolie. That's just not possible. So, and yet constantly bombarded by social media and all these images of fake perfection, comparisons are created. But what? Comparisons? Aren't they moved? Comparisons with something that is attainable, or are we comparing ourselves to something impossible? So whatever we do with the impossible, we are never going to surpass it. For some people, this goes deep inside them and it continues. Beyond the impossible standard we have, let's say, we also live in an era of showing off. Story. What did you eat? What did you drink? Where did you go? When did you go? Who was there? Did you sing? All these things, people see them, they post them, and then other people see them. Not everyone can go to the buzukia all the time. Not everyone can have expensive clothes. Not everyone can have so many friends. There is comparison, and that creates insecurity that I'm not enough. So that's also a factor. Definitely, it can lead people to depression. The overexposure of other people's lives and our comparison with them is mainly responsible. I won't say absolutely, so I don't sound absolute, but as far as I've experienced, it mainly has particularly negative consequences for people. And something I want to point out here, and I won't go further into this, most of those things that are shown as great moments, great lives, are isolated incidents. Our listeners should have absolute faith in what I'm saying. Isolated, momentary incidents, which should mainly concern. So it's essentially an artificial image. It's artificial in this image. Knowing people who are considered high up in the social, let's say, in social events, they also have more or less the same problems that everyone else has because we're all human. So we shouldn't think that just because this person, so and so,
No one shows these things, okay?
real wealth has to do with the people we have around us. The richest people I've met suffer from a lack of friendship. Because we know, let's say, for example, that Yanis will hang out with Christos. They have some common interests. They'll hang out together. The person who moves in a framework of great independence, along with everything else he has with him, friends, conquests, and so on, he can never truly believe that those who are essentially his followers are really there for him. And many times when some people go bankrupt, the phones stop ringing. Within 1 or 2 weeks, everything is over and these people fade into obscurity. Yes.
That's a nice topic, so I have some issues myself, but I don't know if it would be good to talk about them. Anyway, one is about those who write negative comments. What do you think all these people are going through? And the other, should we also talk about obese people who might be are facing? Maybe you have patients like that too.
And I was obese?
You were very obese.
Really?
I didn't expect that. Do you want to take one of the two? Whatever you want.
We can talk.
What do you think?
About people who leave negative comments? Will we have them too?
We'll probably get them too.
I haven't said that I'm always positive about this. After all, I put myself out there to receive criticism, and it will be an honor for me, for anyone to comment for any reason, and I will take it into consideration. No, it really won't bother me. That's why we're here. On a show.
Which, for me, I was shocked when I found out that some people write negative comments knowing the law. It might be people in the profession anyway, just so they can sue you, because you might get involved and they can make money out of it. And from that I realized that I don't pay any attention to the comments at all, because you never know what their purpose is, that other person.
Look, as far as, let's say, the psychology of the commenter is concerned, one thing that I find really funny, and when I say it publicly, I have no problem, it's that I see below, let's say, for example, I see under famous women, some of whom I had the honor to meet. I see a barrage, let's say, of negative comments, to put it specifically, which always makes me laugh. And I think, for example, that these women who are being criticized, and some of them have even appeared here, of course, on the show. I think about all those who insult them, and it's mostly men. I wonder if these women made a move on them, how many flips would they do, right? I would at least like us to be honest with ourselves. Exactly. And of course, another thing is that I've seen in some other shows we've done about people who were involved in delinquent behavior, in a delinquent lifestyle, and so on. And underneath there were some negative comments written. Would Paramithas really want to say these things to his face? That's difficult.
I would like to.
Not really, it would be very funny, right? It's something that would be very entertaining to watch because, unfortunately, the expression of cowardly boldness says a lot about a person's character. So basically, a person who feels a certain kind of security, who is safe behind his screen and so on, can write something. It shows that he has a blatant lack of respect for others, since he believes he is safe to act as he sees fit. True respect has to do with the fact that even if I'm not obligated, what I told you earlier about prisons, no one ever forced me to speak formally, to all productive people, and no one forced them either not to trample me when my time came to. Because a person who does not show respect and does not respect universally cannot expect respect from others. And this is an example from life. I think we've heard it from other people as well. Well, it's good then for people who write negatively about everyone else, even though they don't know them and in the end they don't even like them. Well, it would be good to wonder for them to wonder why they demand respect and if they really deserve respect since they don't give it. That's it. For someone they judge to be beneath them, someone they don't like, or because a woman does a certain job and so on. We are not judges of anyone. We can express our opinion in a nice way. For example, I myself, let's say, with some people I don't agree at all, but I wouldn't go so far as to make malicious criticism or intentionally insult the other person. That I'm like this, that I'm like that.
In the end,
Who am I to judge? I thought about that for myself. Am I that good? Am I, let's say, the sinless one? And this was prompted especially by some women I saw being criticized in the comments, and I know them because I have met them personally. I know that having seen some of those who were commenting, I would always click on their profiles. It would be really funny if I could see with just a gesture exactly what I would do.
Giorgos, can you tell me about obesity? Because you were also obese, what did you see? I don't know.
I was obese for many years.
and
I would like to say a few things here from my own experience. We'll talk a bit on a personal level and then a bit more scientifically. In general, as an obese person, I was the subject of mockery because I was obese. At a time when most children, if not all, were probably, let's not say all, but most children in life. Everyone was thin because it was before the era of fast food. Now we're talking about the 1990s. Obesity in Greece was essentially non-existent. In the Western world today, obesity is universal. I mean, in Greece, a study was conducted 3 months ago. I think 96% of the population does not exercise regularly. This means that combined with the foods we eat, obesity is now a very high probability. Because we no longer have home-cooked meals in most households, we don't have that luxury anymore. We have convenience food, and as everyone knows, convenience food is made with chemical ingredients, which are a combination of sugar, but also, to make it addictive, don't overlook this. Nowadays, foods are created by genius scientists, and they are made to be addictive. That's why some other food chains have incredible consumption, while traditional souvlaki shops and especially taverns have seen their consumption drop compared to what it used to be. And it's not just a matter of too many opening up, it's also that traditional Greek food isn't addictive. Of course, it's a flavor, while the new foods, which are already mass-produced, are absolutely, completely.
And the way you put it now, I'm thinking about the supermarkets that make you walk past all the processed snacks. Having worked, what you said was brilliant, many.
Having worked at a supermarket, yes, of course it's been designed that way. The store is directed, it's not some big secret. That's why in huge stores, for example, Sambo forces you to go through the whole store, just like in...
At Praktika, it's even more so. You are required to go through it.
Just as required. And at the end, they've placed some snacks, supposedly. This is called impulse buying.
But this also happens on websites. You go to buy something and something else pops up. Take this.
I don't see that, but generally that's how it is. So obesity is a condition that has now become normal because the food we eat causes obesity. What I would like to focus on, especially when talking about men, is that it's the hormones which are now present in these foods that harm men. In other words, they produce a result which is what we see. I mean, many times on the street, people are more, soft, more subdued. It's not just about the social context. It also has to do with what kind of fuel we put into ourselves. But if we fill our bodies with such hormones, we can't expect a positive result for our body, can we?
Is it still junk?
So what? And if we are, we're thin, we're skinny fat. So there's sagging, which means the aesthetic result isn't good, and biologically the result isn't good either. It can't be compared. So a person who exercises in terms of discipline, performance, and appetite compared to a person who doesn't exercise and eats these kinds of things. We have the huge advantage in Greece of having amazing cuisine that people come from all over the world to eat, and yet, unbelievably, we go and eat at junk food places. Yes, I mean, come on, really, with this? To eat it once a month, sure, but to go now with Greek cuisine and eat hamburgers and I don't even know what else they eat. I mean, for me, it's unthinkable, especially since I'm involved in sports. Unthinkable, yes, that's it.
So, let's go to one final message before we move on to audience questions. A message you'd like to share. Giorgos, to the people watching us, to the young people.
If you allow me from my position to give a message to people, I would like to basically thank you for listening to me up to this point while we were here in this wonderful company, and let's never stop trying. I think that's the best thing. I mean, the effort to achieve something better in our lives is the driving force that will improve our lives. Once I heard a saying that really stuck with me, and it went like this: never give up, always trust your instincts. Tomorrow will come again, whether we give up or not. Tomorrow will still come, but if we give up, we lose everything. That's it. And the basis of psychotherapy is that I try for something better. I work collaboratively with my therapist, and we create a better tomorrow, a better outcome, a hope. By taking away hope from people, we take away everything. And what about the youth, the younger kids who are 18, 20, 25? What about education? Education? Absolutely, absolutely. I hear some things and they say, I hear sometimes some theories like, why should I go study? Why should I do this? Why should I do that? Education, and generally at universities, what is offered is not just the degree. It's a more well-rounded view of things, a better understanding of our world. If we don't understand our world and we don't try to see why this happens, why that happens, why the other thing happens, we can't understand our place in it. And we can't really think very well about what we will do for our own tomorrow. In other words, we are essentially blind. So I don't want to hear things, even as an educator, like why this or why that. Everything is necessary. In order for a person to have a trained mind, to know roughly what is happening, and to be able to judge and make the best possible choices for themselves and their loved ones, yes.
Very nice message. Giorgos, let's go to audience questions. And if you want to add anything? I'll start first. The question is, yes, here it says, is it true that at 9 o'clock you produce 72 hours worth of work that someone else would do, respect to my friend, Giorgos, the fighter of life, and Toulis, which...
Many topics. This person who sent this message, I greet him. Is he a listener of your show? He was very excited when I told him I would come here. Why did he write this? Because I have spent several days of my life working 28, 29, and 30 hours straight without stopping. Because I had a goal to achieve. So what he's describing basically describes a period anyway that exists at certain intervals. That he's describing me? Yes, he's referring to me. Where I work on certain days, there are some days in our lives when a window of opportunity opens. There's no going back. There's only forward. At that moment, sleep means nothing to me. I just have to finish. So it refers exactly to this. Where? Well, several times in my life I've worked 27, 28, 29 hours straight without stopping. I stopped for 2 hours and then continued again. That's what my friend is referring to, who is very hardworking. Soon he'll open his own shop, and he's also a boxer on the national team. He's very hardworking and has been on his own for many years.
Nice here. He says Giorgos should discuss the incident with the teacher.
Why?
If I'm not mistaken, you also teach a lot of hours, right?
Yes, I do have extensive experience in teaching, that's true. Here, I would like to briefly refer to a reality that has taken shape regarding this sad incident. Of course, this woman should be condemned as well, who suffered a stroke and died. There have been reports that her students were giving her a hard time, that she couldn't find support, that the parents of the children weren't controlling them, and so on. Let me put it simply. With that in mind, I would like to say the following. In the past, whatever the teacher said was law. Parents would say, the teacher said so, and they would discipline their child according to the teacher's opinion. Today, we have the opposite situation. Parents do not respect the teacher and attack them for various reasons that they have. Essentially, they are undermining their authority. That's one thing. Secondly, the social context, with all the divorces and all the negative events, has essentially made the children more aggressive. We had issues of juvenile delinquency again in Greece during the 1990s, and then they disappeared. Essentially, they were very limited, and now they seem to be coming back. This has to do with the social context, but it also has to do with the parents themselves. So, in order to connect these events with this sad incident, we were dealing with children who found a vulnerable person. Because I read that this woman had some issues and they basically tortured her, they abused her, taking out all their aggression, taking out all, let's say, their negativity. Surely she had reacted and the parents didn't do anything to restrain their children, or at least they didn't try hard enough, and we ended up with this result. The negative outcome is, I would say, typical of the times and of the mentality, which most parents have nowadays, who do not respect the teacher's work, do not respect his effort. And they also often have their own expectations for their children. What do I mean by that? We can't all be students with grades of 20 and 18, right? So in this case, is the teacher to blame? Look at our child. It's our own parallel demands that are to blame. On this matter, I believe that it is a very negative thing and that it is very counterproductive. For the reasons I mentioned,
3 things that destroy mental health today. The
first, I believe, is the social context itself. It's a situation that is very difficult to endure. Negative economic circumstances, negative social circumstances, and in general, human relationships. Second, biochemical factors. What we mentioned before, that men, specifically for men, with various actions they take, make the already difficult situation even worse. The serious problem that exists with us. That is low testosterone and poor diet, plus some actions that make the situation worse, especially for women. Comparison with standards that are unattainable, literally impossible. And third, I would say that unfortunately there is a deep-rooted suspicion between the two genders. I mean, are men the bad guys? I keep hearing this, even now. They accuse women of this, that, and the other. There is a misunderstanding. And women say, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do the other thing. I think these factors are particularly destabilizing, especially for human relationships, with the result that many of the outlets people used to have in the past have not disappeared, but have been greatly reduced. They've become distant. To put it more accurately, are the conditions right now difficult for mental health?
Yes, would you like to give me some advice for parents so their children don't get into trouble or anything else? Author Wave?
If you allow me to give some advice, I will answer not scientifically, not based on literature, but based on the experience I've had so far. Both as a psychotherapist and as an educator, I would like to say that parents should not have unreasonable expectations from their children. I think that's the most important thing of all. Whatever else we say, I think that's the most important. Not all children can be perfect students. Not all children can perform amazingly every day. They can't avoid getting tired. Children can't become better than we expect from ourselves. Why do so many parents believe and want to see their child leave the working class? Yes,
But how can you control your child?
it's a whole science, as we say, how you can control your child. The relationship with your child starts from the day they are born. Here, I would like to give parents some credit. Well, that the social conditions no longer allow raising children the way it was done 40 years ago. Well, in the 1980s, both in Greece and throughout the Western world, the father went to work and the mother stayed at home. She raised 3 or 4 children, sometimes 2 or 3. In summer, vacations in the village lasted a month and a half, or even 2. Now both parents work, they can't make ends meet, pressure at home, noise. How can a child not get lost? So they should be cultivated from a very young age. The concept of trust too. If the child feels their parent is there for them and that there are clear boundaries, then the relationship of discipline and trust is much stronger than if those things don't exist. The presence of the family should be a factor that supports the child and strengthens their development, not a factor of oppression. What do I mean by that? Not do whatever you want, my child, but also not no to everything. No, don't go there. No, don't go somewhere else. Because the child and people in general, if they want a solution, they will find a way to do anything. A little more trust, some exposure to certain things, that's how it is. A bit more for the first time, a bit more like that. Risky, let's say. Let's allow some excursions to happen. Let our child go. Let's not restrict them. It's okay if they go out one night. Let them go out a bit to develop. I believe there should be a relationship that shows there are boundaries, but we also trust our child and we shouldn't have conflicting expectations. To close on this, I remembered something very important about the presence of the family and how not to lose your child. Absolutely all the inmates I had spoken to, and I'll say it here, even if it sounds exaggerated, it might be 99. I remember I didn't find even one exception. They told me I didn't have my father, or my father was drinking, or he left, or he used to beat me, or he used to beat my mother. In any case, he wasn't a father figure. And I remember that I had noticed this since then. And I saw that these people didn't have a father figure. They didn't have any control. So I believe that, well, parents should be parents. The father is neither a friend, nor a brother, nor a bro, nor anything like that. He needs to be there with his child, one child, 2 children, to be supportive, to find the time he needs within the whole framework. It's difficult, very much so, a real feat. Parents today are heroes as much as anyone can be. And to close, one last thing so we don't see everything in a negative light. I believe that today's parents, in most cases, are more effective than many parents from previous generations. And why do I say this? Today, most children manage to finish university, they manage to find a job. Your generation does a lot of jobs that we didn't do. We didn't start businesses. Now all the kids do. They say, I don't want to work in the public sector. I want to start a business. They open cafes. They start things on the internet. They do a lot of things. They dare to try. In my time, everyone wanted to become a public servant. And after the master's degree, almost no one had one. When I did my second master's, it was crazy. No one else had one. Back then, we had very high rates of youth alcoholism and heroin use. We had a heroin epidemic, while today the youth have many problems. But I believe that parents, despite the negative social circumstances, are doing an excellent job. And I say this because, remembering previous decades, many parents, and let me mention something statistical as well. We talked about delinquency, that the number of Greek inmates and Greek offenders has decreased dramatically. So something good is happening in our homes? I think not everything is negative, right? Yes, yes, yes.
Well, Giorgos, it was a great pleasure. It's an honor for me, and I believe the viewers enjoyed it a lot. They found it interesting. Will you leave your Instagram below so they can send you a message? Anyone who wants to send a message?
There's no need to say anything special. I'll reply to everyone about any issue that's on their mind. It's my pleasure to talk with people. I don't see it as a way to make money. You can send anything. I'll reply to you on both Instagram and Facebook. It'll be my pleasure.
And I believe we covered a lot of topics that will definitely interest some people. I mean, everyone. As we said, abandonment, obesity, so many things. Let's wrap up the video. Goodbye.